While studying abroad in the fall semester of 2013, my classmates and I got word of the death of Lou Reed. We being tasteful college students with decent musical appreciation, the news affected a lot of us, and we spent a lot of the night listening to Velvet Underground records, talking about how Reed's drowsy storytelling would become the template for Gen X and millennial malaise that has been so fashionable over our lifetime. Fashion was such a point of the conversation that in memoriam I hung a collared shirt I wasn't using in the hallway, and in the breast pocket I put a folded piece of notebook paper with Lou Reed's name scratched in pen. As the shirt hung over the next week, people on our floor of the building took the piece of folded notebook paper and added names of famous artists whose deaths affected them as well. Amy Winehouse, Whitney Houston, Biggie Smalls, Kurt Cobain, and so on. As the list grew, I checked to see what new names had been written, and after a few days one stood out above all the others: Remus Lupin. Lupin's death in the final Harry Potter book hit me emotionally more than any other in that series, with the exception of Fred Weasley in Sirius Black. So I immediately understood the impetus one would get to include the name Remus Lupin among a list of dead artists and celebrities. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was fundamentally wrong about this. Lou Reed was a person of this world. He was born, suffered, and died, just like all of us have and will. The same went for Amy Winehouse, Whitney Houston, Biggie Smalls, Kurt Cobain, and everyone else on that list, except for one. I struggled reading Lupin's name because Remus Lupin is a fictional character. I think this is the one thing that makes the Kyoto Animation tragedy so difficult to comprehend for me. On one hand, this happened in a foreign country to people I've never met with names I wouldn't recognize. On the other, I know for a fact that all of the people lost in the fire were directly responsible for creating characters and stories that have brought me so much joy over the years. No, Kumiko and Reina aren't real, neither is K-on's Light Music Club, nor the Iwatobi Swim Club, nor Miss Kobayashi and her Dragon Maid, and so on. But just like I've never met any of these characters in real life, I never shook hands and parted ways with Amy Winehouse or Whitney Houston. Does that make them any less real? Aren't celebrities kind of fictional characters as well? Compounded with that realization are the faces of the anonymous. These were directors and keyframe artists and sound designers and office managers lost to the whims of a madman. It's been said thousands of times already even before this tragedy, but the people at KyoAni really were the best. Not just for the quality of the work they produced, but for the sheer love that was so palpable in every little detail they worked on. Not just for their favorable working conditions that attracted the country's best talent, but for their mission to raise and nurture young talent and turn into a hyper-local, self-sustaining enterprise. And now so many people responsible for fostering such a creative and healthy environment are gone. As with most tragedies occurring on the other side of the world, there's very little that one can do to truly help the situation. A couple reasonably reputable methods of donating money have popped up, but it's unclear how that money will even get to people that need it, much less understood how it will be distributed and utilized. If you believe in prayer or positive thinking, I can't imagine it would hurt to reflect a bit on the victims and their families. Beyond that, there really isn't much else beyond continuing to live your days. There is one last thing I'd like to bring up, and that's the possibility of a future of this studio. I imagine that many people upon hearing the news wondered if this meant the end of Kyoto Animation, or if by some Dionysian effort the studio can be rebuilt and restaffed and once again produce works at the same high quality they did before. This is both a callous and a natural thought. The studio existed for most people insofar as the work they produced, and so it takes a great amount of sympathy to process this tragedy as people lost instead of content lost. The thought of a KyoAni renaissance sounds hopeful, and who knows? Maybe it could happen. Or maybe everyone left standing will agree to let dead dogs lie, go their separate ways, or start working in a new environment under a new name. It's hard to see which path makes the most sense at this point. Perhaps the best thing to give in this situation is time. There isn't a great way to end this, so I'll just end by saying rest in peace, Lou Reed. Rest in peace everyone who died in this horrific tragedy, and I hope the affected families surround themselves with loved ones and can grieve as needed. And if it comes to this, rest in peace, Kyoto Animation. They truly were the best.